Welcome back to Paul's Hardware. Welcome back to my monthly build series. It's November 2023, hence the beard that is already growing in. Last month, I recommended a $1,200 sweet spot build, and thanks to everyone who watched me actually assemble that system. There was a lot of back and forth in the comments on that video whether I should recommend a higher end build for November or a less expensive build, and I've decided to go with the less expensive option. Not $1,200, not even $900 or $800, but less than $700 for today's gaming PC. Parts are linked in the description, of course, if you want to get right to it. But more than that, I wanted to provide a bit of a compendium for anyone who's building a budget gaming PC this holiday season. Whether you're spending $700 or $1,000, I'm going to get you set up for anything in between.
Excellent!
Today's video is brought to you by Lexar's Thor OC DDR5 memory kits, powering the latest generation of desktop gaming and workstation PCs. Available in speeds up to 6,000 megatransfers per second with CL32 timings, and equipped with both XMP 3.0 and Expo support for Intel or AMD platforms, Lexar Thor OC DDR5 memory provides stability, reliability, and efficiency in a classy and elegant low-profile design. For more on Lexar's Thor OC DDR5 memory kits, click the sponsor link in the video description. A quick note before we begin, I'm not actually building any systems today, so if you want to see me assemble a PC, check out my beginner's guide to building a gaming PC playlist or my builds playlist, where you can see a bunch of my most recent builds, including the $1,200 build from last month. But here it is, my sub $700 gaming PC build for November 2023, and in order to get the price down, I did have to go with some slightly older components. So this is an AM4 build, which is AMD's previous generation. So this build is on a platform that is end of life, but I'll talk more about the pros and cons when I get to some of the other options that you might be building with. But we have a Ryzen 5 5600, a 6-core processor, and I think for anyone building a ground-up gaming PC right now, you should at least get a 6-core 12-thread processor, and then maybe look at higher-end options from there. Since we're sticking with budget builds today, I'm going with stock cooling. That's $0 price. Of course, you can upgrade your cooler, and I've got a few of those linked in the description too. But the GPU is going to be the most impactful component on your gaming PC's performance, and also potentially the most expensive component. Just a few weeks ago, we saw the launch of Intel's Arc A580, and this is a solid graphics card for around $180 US. However, its step-up big brother, the A750, can often be found for just $20 to $30 more than this graphics card. So unless you're on a serious budget and you need to save an extra $40 or $50, in which case, consider the A580, I'm recommending the Arc A750, and you can find those for around $220 starting out as of this morning. For memory on this build, again, to keep the cost down, I've gone with a 16GB kit of DDR4 3600, which you can find for about $40. It's one of the first upgrades I would do to this system, is going from a 16GB kit to about 32 gigs. Again, that's linked in the description, and you'll only need to spend about $70 to $80 to get yourself twice as much memory. Our motherboard is an MSI B550-A Pro. It's $130, and that's one of the big savings for the AM4 platform versus AM5. Motherboards are a lot cheaper, and with a B550 chipset and almost all of the Ryzen 5, 7, and 9 processors, they are unlocked for overclocking, which is very nice. For the rest of the components, I have about a $150 package that includes a very good deal on the Fantex Eclipse G300A case that I built with last month. I built with the 3-fan version that costs around $70 to $80, but the 1-fan version is on sale for $40 right now. Add a couple more fans and you pretty much got the 3-fan version, essentially, and I can vouch for it being a very solid case for a very inexpensive price. Likewise, SSD prices are way down. A 1TB NVMe SSD, the M.2 slot ones, should cost you around $40 to $50. This is a solid Team one for $47. Lastly, we have a Rosewell Hive 750-watt power supply, and here's another spot where you could save yourself $20 or so by going with a lower wattage like a 600-watt unit. However, before you invest in your power supply, look at your graphics card, check the wattage recommendation for the power supply based on the GPU that you're choosing or the GPU that you might upgrade to in 6 years to a year from now, because it's worth it to spend an extra $10 or $20 on a higher wattage power supply for your initial build. That way you won't have to remove the power supply if you upgrade your graphics card, which is a big pain in the butt. So in order to provide you guys with a wider range of options and choices, I have this Google Doc, and all of these products are linked in the video's description, but I hope you guys don't mind following along with me here so I can show you how I've separated things out, starting with what I call the core components. That's the CPU, the motherboard, and the memory, and those should often be purchased or considered as sort of a package buy to get them all together at the same time to make sure you're getting good compatibility, of course. But I've also gathered multiple options for you guys here so you can get a better idea of like, oh yes, for your motherboard, there might be multiple different choices that you could go with, and for your CPU as well. So for this most budget AM4 build with the Ryzen 5 5600, we have a few choices here. The lowest price among these components, if you combine them together, is about $303. But if you're investing in an AM4 system right now, there are a few things that you should know. First of all, this platform is end of life. It's been replaced by AM5. AM5 is going to be the platform moving forward. And while there are a few upgrades from the Ryzen 5 5600, most notably the 5800X 3D, which currently goes for a little over $300, you're not going to be seeing new generations of CPUs launching on this platform. You're also going to be stuck with using DDR4 memory for this build, which is good in a way because DDR4 memory is cheaper. However, it does not have that forward compatibility since newer platforms are using DDR5. If you build a newer system down the line, you won't be able to use that DDR4 memory again. That said, you do have one of the best bang for the buck gaming CPUs on this platform, and still one of the best gaming CPUs all around, which is the 5800X 3D, so you could upgrade to that in the future if you started off with this sub $700 build. The other advantage for AM4 is going to be your motherboard options, and again, I have 4 of them listed here, and you can find really solid B550 motherboards unlocked for overclocking with pretty much all the features that you'd need for around $130 to $140, which is way less expensive than what those AM5 motherboards cost. If you take these core components here, combine them with a GPU, and I have a $500 range, $300 range, and $200 range GPU listed, and then everything else, those other 3 components, your SSD storage case and power supply, you will get all the parts you need for a full PC build. But those 3 core components, if you're sticking with a standard ATX build, can be swapped out. So you can do an Intel LGA 1700 build, and the cost of those 3 components at the lowest end would be about $390, so only about $90-ish more. Here, the budget CPU to go for is going to be the 12400F, which is about $150. You can potentially upgrade from there to like the 13400F, which is a little over $200. The advantages of going with Intel's LGA 1700 platform right now are going to be that you have access to CPUs that are going to be a bit faster than what AMD has available on AM4. You do have some flexibility with LGA 1700 because motherboards are available in either DDR4 trim or DDR5 trim, so you could go with either one, which might let you use some old DDR4 memory. However, again, if you're buying new right now, I'd recommend going with a DDR5 LGA 1700 motherboard because DDR5 memory has come way down in price, and it will be a bit faster than typical DDR4 options. Another advantage potentially of LGA 1700 is that you actually have some reasonably priced motherboards. Here's a good example from MSI, the Pro Z790-S. Z790 motherboards are a bit newer than Z690. They're both intercompatible, but going with Z790 will mean that if you drop in a 13th gen or 14th gen CPU, for example, you should be able to recognize the CPU without first updating the motherboard's BIOS. So I was pleasantly surprised to find that even the current gen Z series motherboards are available for reasonable prices. So pair that up with 32 gigabytes of DDR5 6000 speed memory, which is available for $90, and you have this little package here for $390. Now the downsides to investing in an LGA 1700 based build right now are that after Intel's 14th gen CPUs finish launching, which should be the beginning of 2024, we're not expecting any additional CPUs on that platform, so it is effectively end of life, although there will be a few more CPUs launching early next year. And one of the things I find to be frustrating about Intel's platform is they do have stricter requirements to unlock overclocking if overclocking your CPU is something that you want to dabble in the future. If you're not planning on overclocking, you don't need to worry about this at all, but for Intel, you need both a CPU that's a K SKU that ends in K, like 12600K for example, and you need a motherboard with a Z series chipset like Z690 or Z790. Now with this $150 motherboard, we do have half of that package set up already, so on this build, if you were to upgrade to a K series CPU in the future, you would be able to overclock it, but especially for DIY builders and tinkerers who might want to tweak and tune their system in the future, that is something that I always like to mention right up front. The final core components, CPU, motherboard, and memory, are for AM5 here, and here there is another pretty significant bump up in the cost for these 3 parts, about $510 if you're going with the least expensive option, which is the Ryzen 5 7600 right now, which is $230. And then again, you're going to need to pair that with motherboards that are a bit more expensive, getting closer to $200 for a reasonably kitted out one, and a DDR5 memory kit, which is a few bucks more than the Intel option. Granted, memory prices fluctuate all the time, but thankfully a 32 gig DDR5 6000 kit is much more reasonably priced now than it was 6 months to a year ago. And that rounds out these 3 sets of core components. So now let's take a closer look at my GPU options, which are currently split up by a page break. But here's the RX 7800 XT, and for for a build that warrants about a $500 graphics card, which is about a $1,200-ish build in my current opinion, the 7800 XT is the best bang for the buck. It's going to give you the best current performance in terms of raw rasterization horsepower, while also being paired with a nice hefty 16 gig VRAM allocation. If you did want to step up from this GPU, I'd say look at the RTX 4070 and the RTX 4070 Ti. However, those both cost at least $100 more. If you're looking for something in the $300 range, I have two suggestions, either a Radeon RX 6700 XT, which does require a 650 watt power supply. 7800 XT wants a 700 watt power supply at minimum, by the way, or Intel's Arc A770. And here I would say go with the 16 gig version, not the 8 gig version. And for that one, it's recommended you have a 550 watt power supply. So again, just a couple examples of GPUs that meet those criteria. About $310 for a 6700 XT right now. This is a last gen graphics card, but because the pricing in the like $250 to $400-ish range is pretty muddy right now, and it's tough to get a good bang for the buck, going last gen might be your best bet. Here's the Intel Arc A770. This is Sparkle's Titan OC edition, which has a nice big triple slot cooler. Pretty cool, and I would say different blue stripy design on there. And again, this is the 16 gig version. Remember, there are A770s that are 8 gig, and I'd say go for 16 gig if you're gonna go A770. Finally, the card I am recommending for the budget build here is an Arc A750. Predator's Bifrost is a good variant of that in terms of third-party designs. This one's going for $220. The Arc A750 has sold for as little as $200, even down to like $190 right around the same time that the A580 launched. So keep an eye out for deals like that. Those might come back as we get closer to Black Friday. And just to prove I wasn't lying to you, here's the rest of the components. Here's this great deal on the Fantex Eclipse G300A. $50, $10 rebate. You do have to do a rebate form for that. Even $5 more off with this promo code right now, I think actually brings the price down to $35, which is a much better deal than the even $80 down to $70 version with the 3 fans that I used in the October build. For an SSD, if you're on a budget, I'd say keep an eye out for 1 terabyte SSDs in the $40 to $50 range, NVMe ones. Check out which PCIe generation they are. A Gen 3 drive should start out in the like 1200 to 2000 megabytes per second range, but a nicer one that can go a little bit faster should get closer to around 3000 megabytes per second. This is the Team Group MP34, which is $47 for 1 terabyte, or I think like $82 for 2 terabytes. There are Gen 4 NVMe SSDs, PCIe 4.0 ones that are a bit faster. This isn't going to improve your gaming performance though, so don't invest too much in a faster NVMe SSD. But if it's only a difference of $5 or $10, then maybe go for it. $80 here for a 2 terabyte MSI M461, and this one does outstrip the PCIe Gen 3 read and write speeds, going up to about 5,000 megabytes per second reads, 4,200 megabytes per second writes. Honestly, there are crazy good SS deals all over the place right now, so if I find some more, I will link those down in the description. For power supply, we have a very good deal on a 600 watt Thermaltake Tough Power model here. It's 80 plus gold, which means it's better efficiency, so it's not going to waste as much power via heat, and it's going to save you just a little bit on your power bill, so that's not bad. $60, although it is a 600 watt version. So consider a higher wattage model if you want to upgrade your graphics card, or if you're just going with a higher power graphics card right out of the gate. I've been recommending this Rosewell Hive series power supply. It's 750 watts. It's 80 plus bronze, so not quite as good in terms of efficiency, but it's $78. And it is also fully modular, which means that you only plug in the cables that you need. Here are the cables, and the cables are all black, so they won't look too bad. It's got your PCIe cables there, and someone in the last video commented that they got this power supply and they didn't have CPU cables with it. It should. They're shown in the picture, they're right here. There's even 2 of them. So if you have an 8+8 CPU power connector on your motherboard, then you will be able to plug in both of those. I also linked the Thermaltake Tough Power 750 watts. This one's $90, so a little bit more than that Rosewell unit, but it is 80 plus gold, and it's semi-modular in terms of cabling. And that pretty much does it for my core components parts list. You can mix and match a lot of those, and they're all linked down in the video's description. I've linked a handful of other things. For example, if you want to upgrade from the stock CPU cooler that comes with your CPU, Thermalright has a few good options there that are only around $30, $35 or so. The Peerless Assassin, available in RGB and non-RGB trim. We also have some monitors monitors down there because you want a gaming monitor to pair up with your gaming PC if you don't have one already, and you want something that's a higher resolution than 1080 in my opinion, so going for 1440 or higher is a good choice. And then you want something with a higher refresh rate. This one does 170 Hz from GIGABYTE, and it's also FreeSync compatible, and if it's FreeSync compatible, it should be G-Sync compatible as well. This one is $270 for a 27-inch. LG also has a 27-inch 1 millisecond gray to gray. This one's compatible with G-Sync and FreeSync for AMD or NVIDIA graphics cards. This one goes up and down in price. Sometimes it's around $250. It's about $300 right now. And oh, the GIGABYTE M34WQ. Last month, the build that I did for Eric, this is the monitor that he ended up pairing with it, and he said it's been super awesome. This one's ultra-wide 34-inch, 144 Hz, and currently not for sale. But it looks like it might be out of stock right now, so hopefully GIGABYTE brings some more of these back. Okay, one last look at my 3 builds with pie charts this time for visualizations. This is the inexpensive AM4 build for less than $700, and you can see here the CPU expense and the GPU expense are similar. You're still spending a lot less on the CPU, but as you increase the price that you're gonna spend on your gaming PC, chances are most of that money is gonna get dumped into the graphics card because that's where you're gonna get more performance out of. Here's the Intel LGA 1700 build. Just for an example, I've paired it with that Sapphire Pulse GPU for $310, and that brings the price to less than $900, $863 for this system. And then for build 3, my AMD AM5 build shows you how this is pretty much, not exactly, but pretty much the same build that I did last month with the 7600, the 7800 XT, and all the other components that I talked about today brings it to $1,176 right now. And that's gonna wrap it up for my monthly builds video for November 2023. I will be building the budget system that I parted out for you, the sub $700 one, so stay tuned for that video. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you're not already. Hit the thumbs up button on this video if you enjoyed it, and don't forget to check out my store at paulshardware.net where you can buy shirts, mugs, pint glasses, beer sets, and more. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and we'll see you all in the next one.